Hello everyone, welcome back once again to the Block Home server, and today we'll be doing slightly more work upon our wonderful little bedroom door. A very simple and somewhat straightforward project, I should think, and it should get you all to grips with things relatively quickly. Now previously, we managed to hook up a very stable, relatively low-grade fan-based engine, I suppose one could say, to our rotational bearing, and that creates a big spinny thing. What we are trying to do today is make it a little bit more of a controlled spinny thing, and that's going to require a couple of special items. Now, I could make this significantly more complicated, but we'll try and keep it simple. I know your brains are quite squishy, and I believe, yes, I will. I do have one of the pieces we'll be needing for today, a gear shift, already in stock, but I believe I'll make it just for your little wonderful benefits. Now let's see, we're going to be needing a gear shift, as well as a pair of cogwheels, and okay, yes, I understand. Very straightforward. And a couple of pieces of redstone dust makes us a rather simple gear shift. You might be wondering exactly what a gear shift does, and it basically allows us to control the direction of incoming torque. So if we apply a signal, it will happily reverse. This allows us to have the same object move in opposite directions depending upon a redstone signal. The second thing that we'll be needing is... oh, I don't believe I have that in stock. It's right there. Nope, my mistake, that's the wrong thing. Where are you? One of these days I'll make some kind of sorting system, but usually I just have goblins fetch it. No else. Well, this is the sequenced gear shift, which is much alike, but requires quite a bit more crafting to it, and has a better sense of timing, I dare say. But that requires the electron tube, which requires polished rose quartz, which requires sandpaper, which requires rose quartz. A little bit more of a slog, but I believe we'll survive. Here we are, sandpaper itself. I believe that's in my workshop. Maybe I should speed up this a little. It is so dramatic to just come down in that. There we are. Ow. One of these days I'll sort out that as well, but oof, today is not that day. Now, a redstone torch and an iron nugget, and we should be well on our way. Do I have a single iron nuggets? It would seem not. Rather a pity. Oh well. Nope, absolutely not. Right. Very well. Quite a bit of silver on my person, that's a bit concerning. Well, as long as it's stored inside of the null, it should be okay. And we'll also need some gold to make a lovely little clock. There we are. And then a brass casing and 2 cogwheels. Very good. Made these slightly in bulk in advance so that we wouldn't spend too much time today just on the crafting. There we are. And meanwhile, let's grab some shaft, just to make this a bit easier to deal with. Very well. That should be all of the components that we need. So let's just connect these things together. So, the sequenced gear shift, like so, and the regular gear shift, like so. Now, the sequenced gear shift can be controlled to tell it exactly which ways it should be turning, and it only turns whenever it receives a redstone signal. And let's just connect these such a fashion. Not the tidiest, but it should suffice. There we are. Bind those together, and let's see, do I have the materials to simply give this a signal? Well, let's go and make this rather simple upon ourselves and just grab a couple of levers. There we are. A lever and a button should suffice. Now, this will be quite messy, because this is a rather large object. Yep, as I expected. So, with one pulse, this rotates 90 degrees there and then stays in situ. If we power the gear shift, however, and do the same thing, it returns in the opposite direction. Evidently, I may need to lift this up slightly so it doesn't interfere with our walling. But if we can now control this gear shift, we should be able to reduce this to a simple button press, and from there, things get rather interesting. So let's see. The item we will need is right over here. A powered toggle latch. Now this is a fairly straightforward object, if we have a look at it real quickly. Every time it receives a pulse, it changes its output. Very simple and extremely useful. So there we go, and a bit of redstone, bringing you back there. And we want to start with that, just so we don't get anything confused. So now, with a single button press, we have a doorway that constantly swings back and forth. Very, very pendulous, I should say. So now we need only concoct some system by which to generate that incoming pulse, and our doorway should be entirely set to go. Now, a greater statement is that we will probably be in need of 2 pulses, one to open and then one to close, so that we have a proper controlled doorway. And a clock would seem to be the smartest decision. We simply use time itself, measure it with clockwork. Such a wonderful little invention. And then it should be perfectly in tune. Now, the tool we can certainly use for that would be this redstone contact. Now, when a redstone contact on a rotating structure aligns with a redstone contact elsewhere off of the structure, let's try, right, not quite there, come on, behave. Oh, very well, I should beat you into submission if necessary. There we are. And we will need, there we are, so that then provides a constant output redstone signal. If we, let's see, we are going to need to glue these together. So, I'm going to need some blocks. And somewhat unfortunately, some glue. There's always glue. Marble, that'll suffice for right now. Let's see, my glue is right there. Unpleasant though it may be. Glue there, and a block there. Now, when we send this moving, they should be now attached, so there we are. And using that, we can now create a signal out of our system and allow us to control exactly which way this goes every single time it receives a pulse. So let's pick these up. And reset their connection. There. And we can call this our input pulse, I suppose. Except now we have the problem that we can't actually control it because it's not outputting a pulse, it's outputting a constant signal. Somewhat troublesome, isn't it? But we can control that slightly better by simply moving this back and then putting a pulse in there. fortunately for our purposes, the sequence gear shift starts with exactly the setting that we need it to be on. And a simple bit of shaft. There we are. Now, a pulse repeater is fairly similar to a regular, mundane, cheap repeater. It simply only outputs a very, very, very brief pulse, and that is exactly what we are looking for here. Because a constant signal creates that problem that we just had. Oh dear. That will be somewhat the wrong way. But we can resolve that by simply causing mischief slightly. Oh, there's that wall again. I might have placed this in the opposite direction. That could be why. There we are. Very good. Now we could tie this to some kind of large delay, give us a certain period of time before the entire wall comes open, or we could use a more complex and meaningful contraption, I believe. I suppose we have just elevated the ceiling in here quite conveniently. Not too bad, not too bad. So, what will it take to control this? Time is the most relevant value when it comes to sleeping, so I believe some kind of actual world clock will be more meaningful than anything else. Here we are. I haven't, by the way, made the actual clock look any better right now, just because we need to focus on how it works first. That said, I will quickly replace that, just so at least it's in keeping. Now, if we create a different kind of bearing to our simple rotational mechanical bearing, we can create a physical clock. So, let us just see. A clockwork bearing requires 2 electron tubes, a brass casing, shaft, and a turntable, all of which is fairly straightforward. We've already seen our share of that. Let's see, wooden slab. I don't believe I have any of those in stock. Those might have been surplus to the dragon invasion. Very well. Quick and easy to craft. Everyone knows that story. 1 turntable. And 2 nether ports, because we will need 2 electron tubes for this. This will be a somewhat more bulkier contraption, but it should nonetheless be straightforward. And I suppose I can put the rest of these iron nuggets to some use. And a brass casing. And there we are, 1 clockwork bearing. Now the distinction between this and a regular mechanical bearing is that it will rotate according to the exact time, meaning it will give you a real world time view of exactly what the rotation should be. Consider it for a clock tower, as it were. Very convenient, very convenient. Now, if we can combine that with our redstone contacts, we can create a structure that emits a signal at a given specific time. in our case, we would probably be using this to emit whenever it becomes meaningful to actually sleep. So let's pick these up, because we are going to need to be somewhat higher up, I should think. And let's see, where would be the most meaningfully efficient place to put this? I think connected to this particular shaft. And let's just, there we go, get some building materials. There we go, let's move you up a step at the very least. That should about do. There we are. Mechanical belts can be so very convenient for translating rotational power. Add a clockwork bearing right there. Very good. Our kinetics should be perfectly fine. That is why we made them in abundance. And let's see. Let's go with the marble for the moment. So there we are. We'll say directly above is good noon. And on top of that, we shall place our redstone contact. There we are. So now we can have our redstone contact, instead of being here, connect to up in the rotation that we actually want it to be. Let's see. So it is currently spinning around to the hour, I believe. Let's see. Hour hand first. Yes, if we placed a second clockwork bearing on this, it would show our minute, but we are most interested in the hour. And this will function even as it is rotating, so I believe it will work quite well. I don't believe it is quite yet time when mortals are off to bed, but let's have a look. Yes, it is certainly getting late, but it's not quite bedtime for the mortals. So we'll have to wait a little bit to find out exactly what position our clock shall be in. That, to me, certainly seems more like early evening. But I believe it'll be fine for the moment. Let's see. Hour first, we can change it to minutes, which is a little bit more mobile. Yes, there we are. We can do it to the 24-hour hand, which I believe is probably best for us right now, and that is fairly close to where we would want it to be, I believe. Updating live, as we can see, very handy. Quite literally handy, I suppose, being clock hands. Now, any more, and I believe it will be at about the time when our bedroom should be open. So let's place our signal there. Yep, I believe that's the correct position. And let's hook these up rather swiftly, just before we can actually get this thing going. Where are rocks? Rocks. Polished granite. Always my favorite material for doing redstone. And so now, when the time next moves on, this should be ready to move. Any time now. Any moment. Just give it a second. Oh, the waiting is such agony. Has it moved at all? Has the signal simply not come through? Oh yes, we will have to reinstall our... Ah, there we are. Ah, indeed, the signal hasn't come through. I see. Well, I believe I can resolve that problem. With a little bit of shenaniganry. And again, perhaps the signal simply does not come through... Ah, there we are. Almost anywhere but itself. Yes, does not push through blocks. That does make this slightly more complex. But we can solve that problem quite quickly, I believe, by having our pulse repeater or regular repeater. Regular bog standard repeater, I'm sure, will suffice. Let's see. There you are. I'm glad the redstone supply survived. There we are. Power into there. Repeater there. Of course. And our bedroom door swings open at the appointed hour. It will also, however, swing closed at the same appointed hour tomorrow. You know, I believe that's a problem that we can solve later. For now, let's go have ourselves a spot of fun. Now this should be quite the wonderful little prey. I don't think he'll notice if I swap out his trousers, but he will certainly notice if I swap out his boots. Yes, that'd be quite amusing. Anyone around? Nope, very good. Look is quite quiet at night, but I think it'll be... I think we can cause a stir. Just need to...
What would a fae be doing here?
Oh, the Dritcher. So good to see you.
What brings you to the area?
I was invited, do you remember?
It was only one time, though.
Well, no one rescinded the invitation, and I don't believe it's for you to rescind, seeing as the person responsible has somewhat left the area.
What do you mean?
Oh, you don't know? You didn't hear?
No.
Oh, dreadful business, I'm sure, but, oh, Mr. Strife has gone on quite the journey. I'm afraid he won't be back for some time.
What have you done this time?
Me? I didn't do anything. Why would you think it would be me? I'm just a pure and innocent little fae.
You seem to be acting a bit weirder than usual.
I don't know what you mean.
Are you alright?
I'm fine. Is there anything wrong with you, perhaps? You've been mixing your essence with quite a bit, haven't you? I can still see it in your eyes.
Well, that's another story, but I'm slowly getting better out of it. But you don't feel like the same archfey I once saw.
Oh,
You seem kinda blue.
Oh, I can assure you I'm quite chipper these days.
Are you
But
being controlled by some force?
oh, wouldn't that be a trick? But is there anything I could help you with, Dritcher of Moorclark?
You know I don't deal with the Fae.
I know you
Anymore.
have plenty of deals with Fae. How is the Queen these days?
Well, those are different kind of dealings, as you very well know. And Queen doesn't like when the Fae ask for such things. You should know that.
Well, it's not my court to deal with, I'm afraid.
Yes, but still, being a bit nosy there. I think it's time for you to leave the area. For your own good.
Silver Sheen? Really?
Yeah. Are you willing to risk it all?
Well, the nightlife here does seem to be a bit worse for wear than what I remember, so, yeah, for the moment, I suppose I'll be seeing you next time.
See you around.
You wouldn't give your name and credit card information to an archfey, but you can give your name and credit card information to me at patreon.com/lying, where you can get access to monthly rewards like custom audio clips, early video releases, behind-the-scenes content, and the monthly Patreon Games Day, all for as little as $1 a month. So to support future content, that's patreon.com/lying.